right. Suppose I should probably share the link to this in various places. Alrighty. So we did a preliminary shape that for the Temporal Forge. The Hey Realm, how's it going? Welcome back. So the preliminary shape is pretty basic right now. I'm not like I could sit and spend hours and hours and hours making it like, oh man, it would just take me so long. So when it comes to like assets, like the textures and the models, there has to come a time where you just stop, because you can just spend an infinite amount of time adding endless infinite details, and yeah, it would look cool, right? But it wouldn't be functional, right? The code is what makes it functional. So it's not finished. I'm not going to call it finished because it doesn't have any, right? It doesn't have any guts inside of it. But what I want to do is I want to concentrate a little bit on the code, and get, some of that up and running, and actually get something buildable in the game today. And it maybe investigate a little bit on how do we actually get it working. Depends on how far we get, how fast we get. I'm doing okay. I'm feeling a little burnt out about just everything, life in general. Yeah, it's. I have a flawless track record of not picking the right games to cover. I've been covering Vintage Story now in some way, shape, or form, modding, like the entire thing. I've been doing this for now 4 years, 4.5 years, almost 5, I think. But let's say 4 years. It's 4 solid years. I can't even remember when I first started playing this and first started modding it. I guess I could look at my original upload date for Ores Aplenty. I think that was my very first mod. If we go to the DB here, and I look up Ores Aplenty, somewhere in here, yeah, and I look at files, way back to the original September 2021. September 23rd, 2021. So that fall is when I first started playing this game. Because Ores Aplenty, I made pretty much in the first couple weeks of me starting playing this game. So September of 2021. So it's been 5 years. It's been 5 years I've been covering this game. Now, Ores Aplenty, the latest version of that, has almost 20,000 downloads. Right? That is really good. Oh, somebody brought me a mousey. Okay. She loves playing fetch on stream days. So, yeah, version 3.3 is crazy amount of downloads. So everybody, right? It's a pretty common reaction to the game going, holy shit, there's nothing to mine in the underground. Like, it's so hard finding anything to mine. mining in this game is it needs a crazy amount of attention, right? If I were to sit down with Tyrone and I would be like let's talk about the experience of the game. Underground needs a complete overhaul. It needs to be completely overhauled. There needs to be things that appear underground. There needs to be biomes that appear. That you need to have a rich environment to explore, because that's what people like these games. Like there's a lot of building elements and a lot of story elements, but what makes Minecraft so popular? It's not the mining or the crafting, right? It's exploration, and it's mod packs, and it's how extensible it is, and how replayable it is, and how like there's an infinite variety of things. It's really, the Vintage Story is really sterile in that environment. So it's like underground mining and stuff needs a complete overhaul. They need to radically improve things. Anyway, so yeah, I've been doing this for 5 years. Vintage Engineering, the latest version of Vintage Engineering that I posted a couple weeks ago, has less than 900 downloads. Okay. This mod, for whatever reason, is not even remotely as popular as I thought it was going to be. That could be for many, many different reasons, but it's just, I don't know. And I did a tiny little mod for Farming Sim 25. I did a tiny little mod called Buy Another Vehicle. And all it is a way, it's a PC only mod, and all it is it gives you a button when you're in your vehicle list, and you highlight a vehicle, right? One that you already own, right? So let's say you highlight a tractor that you really like, and it has all of the options. It has everything customized to exactly what you want, right? And you want another one of those. What I did is I made a mod. When you click that tractor, it adds a button to buy another one. And what it does is it buys another one of those cars, or another one of those vehicles or implements or whatever it is, with the exact same configuration options that you clicked on, right? It's a copy of that vehicle at full price. There's no cheaty discounts or anything. It's just, give me another one of these with all of the same configure options. Includes colors and tires and all of that stuff. And it's just buy another, right? I did that mod. It's a single script. All it does is it grabs the vehicle that you have highlighted, it processes it through the game's own vehicle shop buying system, right? Which took a little bit of time to sort of chisel that away. And it just buys another one, just like you would if you were going into the shop and buying it manually. That mod has been out for maybe 4 days, maybe 5, and it's got almost 5,000 downloads. So it's like, how the hell can I get excited about adding and building a mod if no one is playing it? That's where I'm at right now. I do a tiny little mod, just kind of a throwaway mod for a game that I enjoy, in my own time, just kind of sitting around chilling. I haven't gotten an audience for Farming Sim. So I the streams that I do for Farming Sim, almost nobody watches. And so I just play it, myself. And this is a feature that I wanted, so I built a script to do it. And it's more popular and been downloaded more times than a mod that I've spent 4 years working on. So you can understand, I'm a little frazzled. So I hope that answers your question, Realm. I have a near flawless track record of picking the wrong horse. So I am super successful at failing. I mean, it's almost comical at this point. Okay. So yeah, it's just a little frustrating. I don't know why the other electricity mod is so popular. If I just pick again, I picked the wrong methodology of wires and stuff. I picked the harder version that is based on actual wire looking wires rather than block placed, boom 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 wires, block to block to block to block, because that's not how electricity runs. So I thought that people would want a little bit of realism in their game, because Vintage Story is more bent towards realism, and so I just thought, hey, they're gonna want a little bit of realism, so the better mod to emulate would be immersive engineering, right? Which is why I thought that would have made a good fit, which is why that's what I did. I built it out with that sort of mindset. Well, it turns out, if you look at the downloads of the Electrical Progressive mod, and you look at the downloads of Vintage Engineering, it's pretty obvious what people actually want. And that surprises me. That's honestly surprising to me. All right, I need MB Forge. That's a colon, not a thing. Okay. Okay, so let's go. We're just going to copy all of this. This is my starter. Like, this MB starter is it's just code that I can copy and paste to all of my new multi-blocks, because it's just a lot of the same code. And yes, there are probably an element or two in here that I could have put in a base class, and that, I may refactor it down the road. But there are a lot of things in here that could not be in a base class. It's just not possible. Where every single version of this is unique to the object. Okay. So inventory, we gotta look at this. Yeah. I don't need quantity slots. I'm going to put 2 in here for now. You have an input and you have an output. It's a very basic machine as far as nitty gritty goes. Pretty basic machine where you have input and output. The complexity of this machine is going to be, it's only going to be active during a temporal storm. That's the gist of this machine. Okay, so we're going to need a custom recipe. We're going to need percent input tank. We don't need any tank based things. I honestly, I don't want to deal with any fluids. I definitely don't want to feel like with temporal fluids or temporal sludge, whatever. Yeah, you could go off the rails and turn the temporal instability into a fluid and then use that fluid to do various things. There's an infinite number of things that you can do with something like this. And I'm sure if somebody out there actually takes the time, they could, learn how to augment and add on to vintage engineering, and they could do all of that stuff. I've seen people cover the Greg Tech New Horizons mod for Minecraft. So there's, I think one person has like 1,500 hours in that mod pack, and they still haven't finished it. But the amount of added machines and it's a mod pack that caters to a very, very, very tiny number of people. So I'm not designing this mod to cater to that, but this mod is capable of expanding into something like that. You can rebalance all the recipes for this mod. Okay, so inventory generic is fine. Item slot is fine. So item slot ID 0 is input, 1 is output. Okay. Output liquid, input liquid. We don't need any of these. Allow pipe. None of these. This is not going to be liquid. Maybe someday I can, enable this, but slot modify, slot ID 0. We'll customize all of this stuff. Get auto push into slot, return inventory of 0. Get auto pull from slot, inventory of 1. Okay, find matching recipe. That is to do. Okay, so we have two inventory slots. Slot modified, auto push into, that's fine. Initialize all of this. Again, the sim tick, again, is every, it's 10 times a second. Now, I could, what I wish you could do is I wish you could take a tick listener. I wish you could dial the interval, right? You take an existing tick listener, right? And I could set this, let's say I set this to like 5 seconds initially. When you place it, it's a 5-second delay. But during a temporal storm, dial that into 10 times a second, right? So it's like, it's slow ticking, every 5 seconds, every 10 seconds or something, because it's going to be off, basically. It's going to be sleeping when there's no temporal storm. So I don't need it to tick as often. But then when a temporal storm is active, just turn that dial on the interval. But I don't think there's any. I highly doubt there's a way to dial that interval, because it's when you add the tick listener, right? The interval determines, I think, somewhere in the realm of the game, deep in the game engine, it keeps track of all those intervals, and it puts this in a bucket. Right? It puts this in a bucket that says, hey, tick this. But I'm not 100% sure. VEMB temp forge. I'm looking at Vintage Engineering's mod page here, looking to see, somebody posted something about the item charger. And there is one thing that I'm going to do that I'm finally throwing in the towel, everybody. I'm finally throwing in the towel. I'm finally throwing it. I cannot stand any more people complaining that this is a glitch. This is an exploit. I just can't. I can't anymore. There are too many mods now that use metal plates that can be broken down into 2 ingots worth of metal nuggets to make this viable. Now what I could do is I could add maybe some metal bits, 1 or 2 metal bits to this. But I'm not. I'm so tired of people complaining that this is an exploit. Literally like an infinite money exploit. So I'm going to remove that, and I am going to remove is it this? Metal plate, steel. Are steel plates not a thing? Why would I add steel plates? Survival items. Items. Metal plate. Item types of resource. Metal plate. Well, yeah, they're there. Metal plate. Huh. Steel is not in here. Steel is not in here. So, yeah, well, we're going to do that. Smelted ratio is 1. That's weird. So this adds steel plates. That's bizarre. Okay. So that patch is good. Now somewhere in here, titanium. This removes titanium from the blacklist for the handbook. Okay. Remaps. That's remapping things and stuff. I thought I had patched plate recycle. There it is. This one here, I'm gonna just flat remove. Just delete it. No longer is there a bonus benefit to metal plates via the press. It's just it breaks literally. Like everybody complains to me. It's like, hey, this is an exploit. Like literally, like here's the craziest thing, right? If I read what the person wrote in here. Okay. Now, follow along if you can. Okay. Please correct the recipe for making metal plates for the press. A, correct the recipe as if I made a mistake. 1 copper ingot can be used to make 1 copper plate. 1 copper plate can be used to make 1 chainmail fabric. 1 chainmail fabric can be dismantled into 40 pieces of copper. Okay. Chainmail fabric. Is that a thing in the game now? Is that a base game resource? Or is that added by a mod? Chainmail fabric. I don't even know where to look for that. It's not a resource. Maybe it's under fabric? No. It's not under, it doesn't have chain in it. Is it a block type maybe? Metal. No. So my guess, chainmail, I know chainmail is a thing. I know I used it. Or I do use it. I just don't remember where it would be. It's not in resource. Metal chain? Okay. I love how whoever built this, these are the only types of variants, but then they exclude by type. So somebody copy and pasted this, and it's like, these aren't even included up here. So I don't know why they would be here. So yeah, somebody just copied and pasted this, because look at all of these, and look at how most of these are not in this list up here. So combustible props by type, yeah, metal chain. So metal chain gold, stack size 2. Okay. So I'm sure that you could use a metal plate to make metal chain. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not gonna go deep into the weeds on that, but so it's like craft the plate, craft the chain, recycle the chain, boom, you get things. And it's like, yeah, how about you just don't do that? But no, people don't work like that. But anyway, so yeah. Anyway, the change is done. It's taken out. Okay. So let's gonna go through here. I just want to go through and update everything. On SimTick, we'll deal with this. A lot of the stuff, is generic, so it's like, we need to add a recipe. Oh yeah, we have input tank. Percent to bar. We don't have GUI word input. So I would like to take input slot dot item stack dot collectible dot get name. Maybe get name. If input slot dot items input slot dot empty. No, not equals. If not input slot dot empty. Yeah, if I don't do this, this will cause an exception. So we don't want to do that. I don't want to crash anybody. Okay, input fluid, we need to remove this. Obviously, that's not needed. Input here, power, now to do add recipe output. Now, I really have to remember that when a temporal storm is going, it's going to be, the screen and stuff is going to be all warped, right? So it's like, when you're looking at this thing, and I think the UI at the top doesn't warp, but I can't remember. So not something I've locked into my memory. I know the screen is all warped and stuff, but the UI, I'm not 100% sure. I think it is. I think it's just a warp effect. It's just a warp shader over the whole screen. Which you can turn down, and like you can adjust that too. People who don't like it or get nauseous really easily can turn that down. I think it's called like glitch something. Okay, so on player right click, tool.wrench, drop all. Okay, this drops all. This is just something all my multi-blocks have now. It just drops. You right click it with a wrench, I believe. Yeah, you right click it with a wrench and it'll just drop what's in it, so you can remove. Just a way to access the inventory, because none of my multi-blocks, other than the creosote oven, the creosote oven is the only one, but none of my multi-blocks have a UI. I think the creosote oven does. I seem to remember doing that. She lost another mouse. Probably shoved it under the stove again. Okay, so I think this is the gist of it here. This is the beginnings. Okay, this is the very, very beginning. So now we need a recipe. So we need to come down here to go to the recipe system. Now the recipes for this are going to be a little bit unique. So we want to, let's say the chem plant, whatever, doesn't matter. We're going to add class recipe temporal forge. Okay. So we have temporal forge and iByte serializable and recipe. So colon and recipe temporal forge. Like that. Okay. Now, a lot of this, again, is copy and pasted. So we'll start with just copying this entire thing and then pasting it here. Okay. And then go through and tweak and tune and all of the things and stuff. Okay. Now, this JSON object is the wrong JSON object. Okay. So JSON object is line 50. So I'm way past that. Vintage API data structures. Okay. So if we come in here, using vintage story.api.data structures. Okay. So that, now let's paste this and this. I'm just looking for any other squigglies, red squigglies. VE Temporal Forge. Okay. 2 bytes and from bytes. Now we need, what is special about the Temporal Forge recipe? Well, obviously, what's special about this is it's only going to be active during temporal storms. The soot value, I don't think this is going to make any pollution. What am I missing here? Does not inflate interface member clone. Temporal Forge clone. Clone. I'm pretty. What? Clone. Maybe the clone is probably returning the wrong type of object. Crafting recipe ingredient. There we go. The use of barrel recipe ingredient that's specifically with recipe Temporal Forge. There. That should get rid of that error. We can remove the soot. We don't have any soot on this. Do that. Okay. Just kind of going along, just making sure. Ingredients. Like, this stuff is fine. Like, matter state.liquid, that shouldn't matter. Like, the outputs will never get hit for that. So it'll resolve it. It'll check the matter state. I can comment this out. I might as well. It should never hit that, obviously. And then we can remove soot completely. Okay. Temporal Forge, barrel recipe ingredient, crafting recipe ingredient. And ingredients of I. Okay, so I need to go up to the top to look at that. Ingredients. There it is. Recipe Temporal Forge. Okay, and then come down here pair input okay. Consume quantity. Crafting recipe ingredient dot quantity. Dot if parent dot value is greater than 0. This is an int and it's never null, so we can't do a null check. Quantity let's do if key pair in dot value dot quantity is greater than 0, key to take out that quantity, and then no else. At key dot mark dirty. That's a slot, yes. Okay. That was a it was an issue with fluids. So since this is not going to have fluids in it, I mean, you could introduce like a temporal distiller, like whatever, like just throw some word salad together, and you could probably figure out how to do it. But okay, I'm looking at the red. I'm looking at the red dots over here. Ingredients not clone. Barrel recipe. Recipe temporal forge. Okay. That is it for the thing. Okay. So we have the recipe done. Now I could add another slot for the output of this, right? So we have inventory of 0, we have inventory of 1, input and output. Now I could make this have another slot as an output, or have another slot as a, like I can shuffle the inputs and outputs. The problem is, because there's no UI, and I've heard from a few people that they like not having everything have a UI, right? You have a finite number of faces right now in a block to be able to push and pull things. Now, granted, you can pull things from any face. Pushing and pulling are separate functions. So you can push into the west and pull from the west, and you can map it to different item slots. That's fine. But you have 6 faces possible to push into, and 6 faces to pull out of if you wanted to map. So you have a potential for 6 different inputs and 6 different outputs if you wanted to really restrict where stuff is going in and out of. And right now we have 1 input and 1 output right? So if I wanted another slot as an input, I would need to add another. For one, I would need to edit the shape to add an input on another face, and then outputs are less important because I can just drain outputs, from slot to slot to slot. Doesn't really matter. The first slot that has something in it, that's what it drains. Until that's empty, then it goes to the next one. So I can have a myriad of output slots. That's fine. The issue is the input slots. So if somebody can give me ideas or a reason to increase the slots of this, now is the time. Okay? Now is the time. If somebody is inspired to think of recipes that they can add for a temporal forge, right? So we're looking at steel to make temporal steel. We're looking at gears to make temporal gears, right? What else can we do? Right? What else does if somebody's sitting there going, oh, what about this? I think this would be cool, right? I have a finite amount of creativity in me. And I can sit here and sketch out ideas all day. Whether or not somebody might find that fun or just grindy or annoying. Trying to use the last of my coffee here. There we go. Now, I'm sure if the spiffing Brit were to watch me, he would cringe every time I take a sip of coffee. I'm a coffee drinker. I'm an evil coffee drinker. Okay, so right now, yes, there's just one input, one output. There's just the trick to this machine is going to be temporal storm active. So what does that mean? First of all, let's do inventory stuff. The update bouncer, we're going to do private recipe temporal forge current recipe. Okay. Now this is null, and we'll go through the find matching recipe. This is where all that logic goes in to try to match if our input is not null, right? We're gonna need if input slot dot empty return false. Okay. Now we have some research to do, right? I've done this before. I've looked into this. So again, this is I made a lot of mods for this game, right? And a lot of that was trying to learn how the game works behind the scenes, right? Because very little was documented. Like the game doesn't really tell you or hold your hand through this process. You just kind of have to chip away at it. So DN Spy, this app has been instrumental in learning how the game works because it's a free app and you just load in the DLLs, right? Here's the Vintage Story API, Vintage Story Live, VS Survival mod, and I'm sure I have the Essential mod in here somewhere, but all of these other ones they're loaded in. There's the Essentials. They're loaded in as you're looking at stuff, and as it needs to reference like system and all of this, it loads all of those in. But these are the important ones, right? These are the important ones. So what I need is temporal. What is in here for temporal stuff, right? And I'm looking at temporal stability. I'm looking at temporal storms, temporal storm condition. So right here, system temporal stability, right, is a mod system. The game is built on top of its own modding system. So all of the different systems in the game are themselves mod systems, right? There are many, many of them, by the way. Dozens of mod systems in the game, all interacting. So this mod system, system temporal stability, looks like there is now storm active. Okay, so if we look at system temporal stability, we can look at, is there a storm? Nearest rift distance. Rift system. Server rifts that nearest. Command next storm. This data. Next storm total days. On temp storm tick. So this is actually what is the storm temporal storm runtime data? So I think that is where data, temporal storm runtime data. Now storm active. Okay, so now storm active. And glitch strength. So we can actually get a lot of the details of storms. Storm active total days. Storm total days. Okay, so and see, this Rift system is private. I don't know why. Why is the Rift system private? Right? The only public, looks like all of these are privates, except for this for some reason. And this. So the data, yeah, all of these are private. So storm data, this is a public getter, so we can grab that. The storm strength obviously is public, but since data is public, storm grit strength is, I don't know why this would be in there. So we can access the data and rifts. Unfortunately, the rift, we would have to grab individually the rift system. Because what I could do, right, if a temporal storm is active, the thing is active. If a rift spawns near this thing, right, let's say within 10 blocks. If a rift spawns within 10 blocks of this thing, then it could be active as well. Because that's temporal instability, right? It's localized temporal instability. Okay, so we want to grab the system temporal stability and the mod system rifts. Okay. Mod system rifts. What? Okay, start. Rift system on it. Yeah, here it is. Get mod system. Okay. So we're going to go into our code here. I want private mod system rifts. Rift sys. private system temporal stability, temporal sys. Okay. Now in the start, right, function, that would be most likely an initialize. We would want API dot mod loader dot get mod system rift mod riff system riffs true rift sys equals. Okay. Mod system riffs, yes. Okay, so now we want to do temporal sys equals ap.modloader.get mod system temporal stability true. So this grabs both of those when this block is initialized. So if you have this thing built, right, initialize is called when you load it up, so it's going to grab those two systems. And when you build the block, when you place the block, it'll do the same thing. It'll call it. Now I should have something in here. Okay, so those are the two systems. Now in the tick event, right, on SimTick, we want bool is storming equals temporal sys dot data storm data dot now storm active. Okay. Now the call to check for riffs, I don't want to run this. Let's see. I wonder if is there an event on get temporal stability? No. There should be an event that triggers. They really should add an event that triggers when a storm triggers, right? A storm hits, boom, it's an event is fired. Yeah, get temporal stability, get temporal stability. Get temporal stability. So, looks like if you disable temporal stability, it always returns a 2. Okay. So it looks like temporal stability might go from 0 to 2, which is kind of weird. Why you would go to 2? It looks like, yeah, every time you clamp stability, it tries to clamp it to 2. Although it's -1 to 2. Yeah, so you have the value. This whole big thing here is the value. clamping it from -1 to 2. Like, there's an infinite number of numbers between, 0 and 1. Why did you have to go from -1 to 2? Like, I don't understand that at all. But whatever. So yeah, I think now here's a good question. Should the severity of the storm affect the crafting speed of the thing? To me, it should, right? It should, because it's like the heavier the storm, right? The heavier the storm, the faster it crafts. The more intense the temporal instability. Let's see. Spawn break. Stability. Storms enabled. There's the data. Let me look at this. Storm glitch strength. I think this, if we analyze this and we say, what assigns this value on temporal storm tick? Okay, is storm enabled, temporal storm strength? Is this, okay, here it is. Now storm active. So if data next storm strength dot medium, right? Storm glitch strength is between 0.67 and to the next double. I don't know what this returns. Divided by 10. And then 0.9. So I'm guessing, yeah. I'm guessing this is, so 0.53, 0.67, 0.9. So storm glitch strength might be somewhere between 0 and 1. At least that's what it looks like. That next double, yeah, that's a rabbit hole I really don't want to fall down right now. So read by, where are we reading this value? Try spawn entity. So minimum value is stability, and then 1 minus 1 times storm glitch strength. So this is going to be a negative number, because it's 1 minus 1 times this. Storm glitch strength might be 1 itself. Right, so it could be 0. Stability is less than 0.25. So yeah, these are all, I think it's between 0 and 1. It's kind of weird. I don't know. Get glitch effect extra strength. Plus mod grit. Okay. Get storm strength. 0. So if there's no storm active, then it's 0. Okay, so I think it's relatively safe to say that if the storm strength is storming now the rift system, I need to look at that. for some reason, the Rift system here, it would be nice to be able to grab this value, but for some reason they made it private, and I don't know why. So it is what it is. So Rift system, there was a call. I thought there was like get. There's the server rifts. Okay, so you have a list of rifts. So where is the nearest rift? I want to say that I saw that somewhere. Where did I find that? There it is. Nearest rift distance. Server rifts dot nearest. Again, this is a private for some reason. Dot nearest. Excuse me. Where is this coming from? Why am I not getting innumerable extensions? API.util. Okay. No, come on. Okay. Somewhere in here. I put it. I can't remember. There it is. There's the nearest. Nearest rift distance. Okay. So, nearest rift distance, if we look to see what actually uses this call, used by, can spawn nearby. Rift distance equals nearest can spawn nearby. Rift distance is less than 20. So this is checking where the nearest rift is, right? And then grabs get sun position. That's so funny. What? It's just okay. And it's just like, hey, return the rift distance, whatever. Return rift distance less than 6. And ran next level is less than 0.7. So it's like, the sun position, that's new to me. That must be a recent change, or a more recent change. Get sun position, like what does this matter? Square distance 2. Yeah. So what we can do, get nearest rift position. Spawn position is can spawn nearby, right? So this is it's calling a check to say, hey, we're going to send you a position and can we spawn? But what we're going to do, this vector position here, the nearest rift distance, what I can do is call that. This is going to return a float. So I could do float nearest rift equals nearest rift distance, this dot position dot to vector 3D. Oh, that's a function call. Okay. So nearest rift distance, boom, grab this. It's gonna basically do this dot nearest, which is, it's a link function, so who knows how efficient that is. Now if there's only like 2 rifts in there, it should be a very simple, like, bam, call it. There shouldn't be like hundreds and hundreds of rifts in your world. It's just not how they work. They spawn sort of intermittently and randomly. So if is storming or nearest rift is less than, let's say, 11. Okay, 11 blocks nearest rift. If is storming or nearest rift is less than 11, then if electric dot machine state does not equal dot on, set state on. Else, come on, why are you not? Jesus, I was shift entering it, wasn't doing it. If electric dot machine state equals on. Why are you not? Jesus, what just happened? There we go. Set state be state dot sleeping. Okay. So if it's storming and nearest rift, or if it's storming or nearest rift is less than 11 blocks, and machine state is not on, then turn it on. Else, which means if it's not storming and nearest rift is greater than 11, I think my brain just kind of fritzed a little bit. If is storming, or if this or this is true, then go in here. If this and this is false, right? If this is false and this is true, it's going to come in here. If both of these are false, then it's going to come down here, right? And it's going to come in here and go, hey, is the machine on? If it is, then turn it off, right? Go to sleep, right? This block ensures that it's only active during a storm or nearby a rift, or a rift is nearby. Okay, so we have if is built. Okay, so if is built, this must be a base class thing. Yeah. Electric machine state equals on main crafting loop. So this call, right? If this thing turns on, right? If a rift starts in one of these updates and it turns on, then it's going to come in here again, and it's going to be is storming is true, but this is going to be false. which is why I didn't include this into this if statement, because this else turns it off. So this in nested if is important, because otherwise, if I did is storming or this and machine state is on and then I did an else, that would be it would mess up the logic. This is only turning on and off if these are true. If either of these are true. If it's already on, we don't need to turn it on again, right? But if it is on and these are false, then then not turn it off, but make it sleep. And then come down here, and if it turns on, right? If it turns on here, it's going to come down here and go, oh, we're on now, so craft. And then the moment it turns off or sleeps, then this won't call. It'll be built, but it'll be sleeping. So if electric.machine state, I think I need to do and current recipe does not equal null. Right? Current recipe, it needs a recipe. Now, turning it back to sleep doesn't matter. Like, doesn't matter if there's a recipe or not. I don't care. Okay, so that essentially makes it only active during a storm, right? And then why do I have an else right here? If is built and on empty, find a matching recipe. How about I just remove that else? Okay, so the crafting, the animation that crafts, we can, crafting anim code, that is a thing that's set in the attributes of the block that we can set. Okay, so this inventory tree here, what we want to do, the current recipe, I think we need to send the current recipe, and then we need to send or sync or something the amount. Oh, not a recipe. I mean, if we just look at a random thing here, recipe stuff, somewhere in here is recipe stuff. Recipe stuff, literally recipe stuff. So recipe power applied, right? So this is the call. So I want to copy this, paste it here. Recipe power applied is a public. It doesn't really matter what it is. So this is a value. I can't remember if I send the recipe. No, I don't need to send the recipe. I do need to send the power though. So we come down here. Recipe power applied. And then recipe power applied. You come down here. because the clients are going to get the inventory, right? Clients will get an inventory, and then the clients themselves will find a matching recipe. So the client will find the matching recipe. What the client needs then is how much power has been applied to that, like to that machine. Now the block information, somewhere in here, get block info. Okay, so the block information is if current recipe does not equal null. And if we look at the chemical plant, get block info, GUI word crafting, here it is. Current recipe. We'll just take this whole block. Okay, current recipe.code. Current recipe dot outputs of 0, which is a dot resolved item stack dot get name. That's instead of doing the code for the recipe, it should be the output. Now, there could be a problem, right? If this resolved item stack is null, so I'll put a question mark there. If this is null, right? Outputs of 0 should never, like, that should never be null. But the resolved item stack, if somebody makes a typo or something in a recipe they add to this thing, if there's a typo in that and it can't be resolved, then it will cause an exception, and then I'll hear about it, and people will be like, "Hey, your thing crashed," and it's like, "Well, don't put a typo in the recipe then." They're very, very hard. User error is nearly impossible to debug, especially when there's 6,000 mods out there that people could be using. Like there's any number of reasons why something like that breaks. Okay, so this will put out, like, what you'll see at the top is it'll say input, let's say steel ingot, right? And if current recipe does not equal null, why is this here? Okay, it'll say input steel ingot power, and it'll have a little graph. And then it'll say crafting, temporal steel, recipe progress. And then what we want to do is, let's see. I want to indicate, like, crafting paused, or waiting for temporal instability, or waiting for temporal storm. Like, what do you guys think? Because it's going to say crafting. But and there needs to be something in there that indicates it's not crafting because there's no temporal instability, right? So one way of using this machine is to find a rift in your world, right? If a rift spawns near your base, run out, build the multi-block, right? Power it, and hope that the rift doesn't despawn while you're doing this, right? And then craft a little bit, or wait for a temporal storm. So if we open up the laying here, come all the way down. Let's see. Temp forge. No storm. Crafting paused. No active storm or nearby rift. Okay. I'm trying to like condense the text because I don't want it to be requires active storm or nearby rift. Okay. Now I'll come back here. If let's do current recipe does not equal, well, I'm already in the current recipe does not equal null block. Okay. So I'm already in the current recipe does not equal null, which means there's a recipe, but if the machine is sleeping, I don't have to do the check again. Those are expensive calls, right? I don't want to grab I don't want to do the nearest rift call because that's a no-go on that. So dsc.append line lang.get so this I don't really need that, of course. So if current recipe does not equal null, but the machine is sleeping, that means there's no storm, right? There's no storm or rift nearby, because it will turn on the moment either of those are true. Now, if power is insufficient, I need to use the bathroom. I'll be right back. Okay. What I was going to say before my body decided to interrupt was if power is insufficient, So I don't know how to determine that easily in a quick call. Right? We have the percent to bar. We have that. So percent bar. Because there's a difference between like power per second and power per tick, right? If you're looking at a block and that block has 50 power, right? And the power per second is 50, well, that might technically have enough power. But if it has 3 power and it has 50 power per tick or power per second, sorry, right? So it's 50 power per second or 3 power, but 50 power per second. The tick rate of the machines are 10 times a second. So it would require 5 power per tick, basically. So 3 power would be not enough. So if I say if electric dot current power is less than electric dot max power per second divided by 10, right? These are all U longs. I actually really regret making the power system based on the long value type. I thought I was going to be cheeky and say like, hey, the max value of the power is going to be 18 quintillion, right? Good luck maxing that out. But realistically, like it would take, even at 1,000,000 power per second, it would take years to max that power. Like literally decades to max that power out at 1,000,000 power per second. Right? So it's like it's like 1 billion times 1,000,000 is how many. So it was. I should have made it a double. I should have made it a double. That would have made all the difference. If I would have made it a double. There would have been rounding errors. Like, there would have been rounding errors and stuff, but man, my life would have just been so much easier if I would have made it a double. I mean, a double value is still like, what is the double dot max value? So 1.7 times e to the 3. It's an unfathomably large number, but it's got low precision, right? So you can see that 1.7976 blah 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 blah. Okay, that number is the most detail you can get in that value. So the double value has a precision that is, I don't even know what decimal place that is. That is crazy decimal place. But the plus 308 means you have a value that can have that's 300. That's probably 200 and something, 290 something zeros on the end of that. It's an unfathomably large number, but the precision is a lot less. So it can represent a ginormous number, but not you can't have a number in every one of those digits, because the precision isn't there, right? So yeah, you can have a large number, but even this number, right? You take this number 179 and you take that decimal place if you move it all the way to the end of that number, that's still a larger number, I think, than maybe than the 18 quintillion. I can't be 100% sure, but yeah, I should have. Oops, I should have made that a double. I fat fingered something. There it is. I don't know if the keys on this keyboard are slightly smaller than my previous keyboard, but or just slightly different. But yeah, my muscle memory for this keyboard, I've had this keyboard now for quite a while, and I still have not adjusted my muscle memory. Okay, so electric.current power is less than electric power dot max power per second. I want to put that in here. So I'm dividing it by 10 float, right? I'm saying, hey, max power per second, which is a U long, but divided by 10 float, which means, hey, I want this to be a floating point number. So if it's 5, right, it'll be 2.5 or 0.25 or whatever. Max power per second divided by 10 is how many power per tick. So at the very least, a machine, at the best case scenario, you want a machine to have no less than 10 power per second. Right? That is the bare minimum power per second. Anything less than that, and it's going to default to 1 power per tick, which is 10 power per second, right? Anything less than 10 power per second is going to default to 10 power per second because it needs to at least consume 1 power every tick. It's just how it works. Okay, so if electric.current power is less than blah blah blah, then we need to say we want to do low power or power low. Power low. There it is. So dsc.append line lang.get low power. So that it'll just trigger it when, right? If the current power is bad, which we are, I think we are syncing that. We're syncing that, I think, in the base class. We save the electric details. Okay. If is built and not input slot dot empty and current recipe equals null. Find matching recipe. Just find matching recipe. Okay. This should never trigger this because the moment the slot changes, right? The moment the slot changes, it'll call the find matching recipe. So I shouldn't have to do this. This should never trigger, but just in case, I want to make sure if input slot does not equal empty and if the current recipe is null, that means the input slot has something in it that doesn't match. There's no recipe for it, right? So it will call it every tick. Okay. So that takes care of the block info. Now, what we want yeah, the find matching recipe. Now that we have the recipe, I'm going to move to new window. And we're just going to inputs.entity return false. If API equals null, return false. Okay. List temporal forge. Oh. Oh my God. God, what are you doing? Equals API dot mod loader dot get mod system VE recipe registry system true. And then I need to go to the registry recipe system. And go to here. Okay. Temporal forge recipes. Recipe registry. Register recipe registry. Recipe temporal forge. Oh, nope. Recipe registry generic. Recipe temporal forge. VE temp forge dot recipes. Okay. Add recipes to handbook. API this dot temp forge recipes. Temp forge. So these are the adjectives, right? So this is required machine or the verbs. Processes into or created by. Okay. So cracks into or cracking. We want to say what are some verbs? Somebody throw out some verbs. Temporal, is that spelled right? Destabilizes into. Destabilizes into. Created by. Cracking, destabilizing. Okay. So destabilizes into or destabilizing. So it's like if you're looking at steel, like a steel ingot, you'll see destabilizing or a temporal steel, right? If you're looking at temporal steel, it'll say destabilizing steel. Or if you're looking at steel, it'll say destabilizes into temporal steel. That's how that works. Okay. So we want to copy this into here. And then copy this. Ah! Fat fingered it again. Into here. Okay. So this is looking at the machine, this right here, Temp Forge, right? The required machine. That's what I need to add to the thing and the stuff. Okay. So the Temporal Forge recipes, coming back here, right? We can now say Temporal Forge recipes. Right? And that's why I did all that when I did. Okay, so now we need to register these public void register temporal forge recipe temporal forge recipe temp forge if not ve can register. Every one of these has this. There's probably, a generic way of doing this where I don't have to copy and paste this. Right? Just register VE recipe and then have it a T and then just do the whole, generic thing. So recipe temp forge dot recipe ID equals temp forge recipes dot count plus 1. This dot temp forge recipes dot add recipe temp forge. Okay. And then all of this other stuff is the generic stuff. Okay, so yeah, this is good to go. There's a lot of recipes. I have a lot of custom recipes. So, where are these actually done? Well, the recipe loader is the actual thing that pulls in the recipes. So we need to then come in here. This dot load recipes of recipe temporal forge VE temporal forge recipe recipes VE temp forge. That's the directory, right? Any mod that has recipes / VE temp forge as a directory, it will pull those in. Notice there's no domain in this. It's like any domain is gonna call it. Delegate recipe temporal forge R. Why did you not take that? Okay. VERRS dot register temporal forge recipe of R. Right? So this is load recipes is going out and pulling any files that are in that directory, and it's then calling the register recipe, which is sending it down the rabbit hole of like loading it in, like resolving the items, like it, and if there's errors in the recipe, it throws those, and then after all the recipes are done, it shows the story event recipes, and if I look at that, story event recipes, you see if you're loading the game and it says mysterious constructs, right, in that list as it's going on, if you see mysterious constructs, that's my mod putting that in there. Mysterious constructs. Which means it loaded all the vintage engineering recipes. That's what that means. Right? That's when that story event is triggered. After it's loaded all of my recipes. Okay. So now we need to put a recipe in there. So we go to recipes, right? And we want to make sure this is the directory. So we want to do new folder, paste that in there, VE temp forge. So any files in there. So let's just grab, doesn't really matter, but I want to grab something simple like a metal press recipe. So let's just grab like gears. We're gonna be needing gears anyway, so let's put that in there. So let's do temporal gear. Okay. So this is the recipe to make temporal gears, and we're gonna remove that. Temporal gears. Forge temporal gears. Okay. Requires, we don't really have any requires in here. So yeah, none of those are going to be needed. Power per craft though. This is where the rubber hits the road. These recipes, while yes, going to require temporal storms, it's also going to require obscene amounts of power. So power per craft, we're going to have, I don't really know. Let's put it out there. 15,000. Remember, this is MV tier. The generators produce 1,000 minimum. Right? You put diesel in an MB generator, you're going to get 1,000 power per second. So 15,000 power, right? The actual machine, right? The crafter for this, I'm thinking about 5,000 power per second. That's kind of where my head is at with that. Now, if that's low, like I'm open to ideas. But I'm open to suggestions, I should say. So metal press gears. I just want to look here. I'm thinking vintage engineering metal gear. Steel. I gotta look up what that is called. That would be under item types, possibly resource. Gear. Game gear
temporal. Right? An example recipe of what I'm thinking of. This here is taking steel gears and turning them into temporal gears. Right? With 15,000 power plus temporal instability. Right? Temporal storm or whatever. But that craft roughly every 3 seconds during a temporal storm. So during an average temporal storm, you'd be able to craft, if you were able to push the power, you would be able to craft quite a lot of these in one batch and during one. So the point of this is not to say, temporal storm, it takes, the entire storm to craft a widget, right? To craft a gear or to craft some steel. I want the craft to be, reasonable, because there's already a heavy power requirement and there's going to be the requirement of temporal instability. So I wanted to make sure that the temporal gears were ready to go. Okay. So here we have this. So now we want temporal steel. Forge temporal steel. Okay, so now I need to remind myself what kind of temporal steel we added, because this is actually a carryover from QP Tech that I added 3 years ago. Temporal steel ingots. Okay. Ingot. Temporal steel. Okay. I'm just kind of looking. I literally have not looked in this code for quite some time. This has been a while since I've looked at this. So ingot temporal steel. Machine plate temporal steel. So I think if we go game ingot steel and then Vint engineering ingot temporal steel. Yeah. And then this will be 25,000 power. Okay. So, the charged version, I'm again, this is literally just brought in from QP Tech 4 years ago, and I've just been up until now, it just hasn't been able to be crafted. I even have people commenting like, what does temporal steel do? And I'm like, well, the mod isn't fucking done yet. Like, you can't use a mod and be like, why doesn't there any recipe for it? It's like, it's not done. How do you not understand? How do you not understand that it's not done? So combustible props by type, temporal steel, smelted stack. I want to say like the combustible props stack size. Yeah. That's what I'm missing. Temporal steel. So, combustible props. I'm thinking about this. If you combust this, if you try to smelt this thing, what I instinct tells me it should devolve into steel. Right? So like game : ingot steel. That's what my instinct tells me that I need to do. Item types, ingot. So if we look at steel, where's the combustible? I need to get a temperature. $1502. Let's do 1600. So ingot dash steel, right? And then same with this. Stack size 1. So you take steel, temporal steel, or charged temporal steel. You can convert it back into steel. Right? I don't know why you would, but you can convert it back into steel. Let me look at the metal press recipe. Metal plates. Okay. I need to add one of these items. Parts. Machine plate. Temporal steel. Now machine plates are actually crafted a different way. They're like a grid recipe. Machine plate. Okay. Metal plate. But the metal plate steel, or metal. I'm pretty sure I define parts. We have ingot temporal steel. I guess I don't have a machine plate. Ingot temporal. Yeah. So we don't have a metal plate of temporal steel, but a machine plate. If we copy this and paste it in here, and instead of metal plate steel, which is right in the middle, if I swap this out to Vent Engineering, ingot temporal steel. Right, that's B. So I want B to be here, here, and here. And then we're going to output 2. Vintage Engineering, machine plate, temporal steel. So it's still like, again, I've changed plates to now require 2 ingots. So there's no getting around that. So this uses 4 ingots in the recipe, but it outputs 2, so the ratio is the same. I would like to have made this a little bit differently, some way to automate it, but it is what it is for now. So temporal steel ingot to machine plate, because we don't have metal plates of temporal steel. Yep. So this should be fine. I don't. Yeah, that should be fine. Good. So machine plate now includes temporal steel. Ingots are now craftable, right, via this. What I don't have is the machine definition, right? I don't have a JSON for the machine right now, so it's still, it's not, doesn't exist. So what I kind of want to do is I want to take a block, multi-block. What would be for now? Let's do chemical plant is a little on the big side. Creosote oven, why not? So instead of MB creosote oven, it's going to be temporal forge. Okay. So this VEMB temporal forge, the class is the core. That's fine. It's the same base multi-block class. Entity class VEBE temporal forge. That's not defined yet, but it is what it is. Okay. So now we have the code drop north is the default. And then here's the behavior. We'll deal with this. This is essentially the recipe to build the thing. Okay, so now what we want is we're going to do an electric can receive power true. Consumer max power will be a lot. It'll be a lot. 500,000? 5,000 power per second. Right? You literally have 100 seconds of power in there. I don't know, what is the average length of a temporal storm? Machine recipe by type. This is where that thing comes from in here. Temp Forge. Okay. Multi-block. This is the shape. We haven't done the shape yet, but it'll be Temp Forge Core. Creative inventory. Again, we'll copy this. MB creosote oven. Nope. Complete. And then this will be Temp Forge. Well, let's look at what the actual shape is called before I assume. Block, multi-block, machine. Temporal Forge. Let's actually do that. Okay. Um, I don't need any of these. I don't need that. Nat. Either of those. I don't have a crafting, I don't have an animation yet, and I don't want it to try to do an animation that doesn't exist, so that would probably crash, and I don't want to do that. Okay, so temporal steel is done. Now for the actual block. Dash star. Okay. Within 10 blocks. Only active during a temporal storm, or if a rift was within 10 blocks. Crafts. Special crafts. Let's see. crafts high end material using, let's see, I don't know, infuses temporal instability into material, creating high end crafting. Thanks. I appreciate it very much. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I would not do well if I tried to pronounce that. So I apologize. But yeah, thank you very much. It's been kind of this mod is my 30 years of modding, right? I started modding in the late 90s. And even founded a couple modding communities. I helped found the SimCity 4 modding community way back in, what was that, 2002, 2003? When I cracked the database format that it used. But yeah, it's been a long journey. This mod has really been my magnum opus. It's been a lot of work. With not a lot of fanfare, right? It's not the most popular mod. It's on a game that's, a minor game, but it really is a labor of love. And I've done 99% of the code in this game. This mod. It's been a labor. It's been a process, but it's taught me a lot, and made me extremely familiar with the code base. More than any other mod more than any other game I modded. And I have modded dozens of games, dozens of them over the years. If there are so many that I've forgotten a lot. Like I remember every once in a while, I'm like, oh yeah, I did make a mod for that game, or I did do this, like Airport CEO, right? 2 Point Hospital. I've made mods for so many different games. A lot of them have kind of fallen off, the radar. I made mods for Transport Fever 2. That people are still like, hey, can you update this? And I'm like, I haven't played that game in like 5 years. Like, what do you mean update this? So it's like I have mods for, a lot of old stuff. Graveyard Keeper. I did some original mods for Graveyard Keeper. Way back in the day, that then I made a mod called Pray the Day Away, okay, where you could pray just every day over and over and over again. And, that mod kind of was posted, and then somebody else made an updated version of it using an updated modding API and named it the same thing, Pray the Day Away. So it's kind of like the torch was handed off, and the way that they did it, I was not happy with it. But anyway, yeah, it's really interesting over the years, having modded so many different games like Dice's Sphere Program, Fortress Craft Evolved, Farming Sim 22, Farming Sim 25, like just so many games over the years. I've forgotten about a lot of them, but yeah. Okay, but yeah, this mod by far is my magnum opus. It's the one I'm most proud of. It's just unfortunate that so few people play with it. Okay, so I don't have any of the obviously these are much longer descriptions for the things, because you include all the components and stuff to build the multi-block. The multi-block I haven't designed that yet. So we're just gonna just YOLO this. Temporal forging complete. Temporal forge built. The temporal forge. Okay. Now, do I have temporal steel? I do. Temporal steel. Item description ingot. Steel infused with temporal instability via the temporal forge. Temporal displacement. Temporal displaced. Temporal items. Temporal displacement. Okay. Now, where's the machine plate? There it is. Temporal forge. No. Crafted. Whoops. With temporal ingots. I don't have any temporal screws. I don't think that would be. I don't think that's necessary. But machine plate, temporal steel. Machine. Oh, there's a machine block. Okay. Okay, I didn't realize that. So let's look at blocks. It says it's a block. Part? Yeah. Temporal steel. Okay. I didn't know we had a machinery block. That's fine. That's fine. So with that, we might want a recipe grid machinery block. Machinery block. Oh, we already have it. But we use the machine plates, which is fine, because remember, this is going to use, it's basically the same recipe to make the plates as the block, right? It's just you swap out the ingots for the plates, right? So you can just open your inventory, put a bunch of screws in there, put temporal ingots in, pull out a bunch of plates, then put the plates in and pull out a bunch of blocks. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Okay. Mysterious machine block for building special machines can be used to build the inexpensive material. So you can use it to build a house if you wanted to, but holy shit, if you have a house built of temporal machine blocks, more power to you, I guess. There may be a day where, you can build a box or something out of temporal machine blocks and then have some sort of like protection. I don't know, protection against the temporal storm. I don't know how you would do that, but so we need to go to his shapes again. Shapes, multi-block, machine, and let's copy the fluid. It doesn't really matter. Fluid generator core, and we're gonna go MV Temporal Forge Core. Okay. I'm pretty sure, yeah, Temporal Forge Core. That's the name of the block, or that's the name of the shape. Now, the icon on that, if we look at the textures, block, multi-blocks, right? These are all this here, and then there's that texture. There's the pump jack down here. So what I do is I grab where is that is the machine plate texture. I think that might be in here. Worn machine plate. So we're going to do that. Copy. Paste. Temporal Forge icon. Okay. Don't I have a Photoshop file or something with these? Yeah. MB icons. Anytime now. There we go. Okay. So close that. New. So what icon? Let's see. What I wish is were there like icons for base game stuff. All the icons, when you see a thing in your inventory, right, and a little icon, that's not an actual icon. It's literally it's literally rendering the 3D shape in your inventory, right? So there are no quote unquote icons in the game. They're all little 3D things that are rendered. Granted, there are icons, but they're all SVG files. So it is what it is. So item, resource. Again, if we wanted a icon of a temporal gear, right? There's your temporal gear. That's what it is. So if we wanted to, we could minimize all the things. Now, I don't know if there's a way to hide this. View, show gridding. Hey, look at that. There is. Okay, so we want to open. Can I just click and drag? Please, 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 please. Shapes. Item. Resource. Where's the gear? Where's the gear? Okay. Maybe item? Gear. There it is. Okay. So we can go here. Let's go view. Turn this off. I want a big version of this. That way when we shrink it down for the icon. And then I'm going to take just a screenshot of that. Go into Photoshop. File, new. Clipboard, paste. Take this and that off. Okay. And then copy this. Shrink it way down. Oh. And then what the hell? Edit, copy, edit, paste. What the hell is that? Oh, this is on grayscale? Well, that looks like just a blob of pixels. Okay. That's not going to work. Forgot it was 32 by 32. I thought it was 64 by 64 for a second. I don't know why. You'd think I would know. This is grayscale. Okay, so let's look at... maybe this instead. New. Lock transparency. Edit. Layer. Oh man. It's been a while since I've had to tweak. Adjustment. Hue. Saturation. Wait. Just this one. Okay. So this is what I want. This one here, we can hide and hide this one. So, can we take and apply that? Merge. Okay. And then we want to shrink this way down. And then come over here. Man, okay. I think it would be probably better to just paint like my own thing here. What the hell? Okay, that's the basics. So we want. I'm just gonna move this to my. Oh my! Really? Are you effing kidding me? I just wanted to move it to a different monitor, and it was like, "Oh, you want it to be this big?" Like, no, I don't want it to be. What are you doing? So let's go here, and then here, here, here. They have two up there. Okay, so oh man, okay, there. Ah. It's 2 blocks. It's two. There. That is the shape. Now that doesn't really scream temporal gear to me. Now if I were to shade that, the problem is this is a grayscale image. And I would have to do like RGB color. And I don't know what that would do to the actual base image. So if I do this and I go and then and then layer. Oh, Jesus. More subtle. It's a little better. It's a little better. It's not best. It's not super awesome, but I'm not an artist, nor do I ever claim to be one. Let's not do any of that. Okay, so this temporal gear, whatever, PNG. And this is putting me in this. This is putting me in that. Okay, so I need to go C programming vintage engineering mod assets vintage textures block multi-blocks temporal forge icon. Save. Replace. Close. Close. Now we can hope above all that this is not going to... Hey, good. We want to view. Open. Vintage shapes. Block. Multi-block. Machine. Temporal forge core. Why is none of the icons? Why was my mod assets vintage? Hey, there we go. I don't know why my base default path was reset, but let's go image, north, image, import, block, multi-blocks, temporal forge, this, apply, copy, paste. The north and south faces get it. Project delete unused textures. That gets rid of the one that we're not using. Save. And exit. Okay. So that, and if anybody's wondering what the actual temporal forge looks like, we can open that. Shapes. I don't know why it defaults to the text. Like, just a modicum of intelligence into this would have been very welcome. So this is currently what the temporal forge looks like. It's not finished, right? It's not finished, but this is basically what it looks like right now. So yeah, what I should do is screenshot this, but it looks like crap in this editor. There's something funky with the way that it renders the glass seams. For some reason, the north or the up and down faces, like, I don't know why that's happening. Why it's there's no block inside of here. There's nothing in here. Right? Why is it treating that plane as there's something in there? It's weird. So I don't really know. But you have the input, you have the output, right? So it is what it is. What I want inside of there is a bunch of like gears and stuff. Some just snaggled blob of gears. And then when it's active, those gears will just all be turning and it'll just look like the whole gear thing. And we could put some gear. We could even put some gears on the outside or like whatever. I don't know. Looks like it's about 4 blocks tall. It's 5 by 5 by 4, give or take. Okay. So that's what it looks like right now. We modeled that last week. Okay, so now we have the temporal forge, multi-block. So now we need to register this block entity, That's blocks. Block entities. Here we go. If you don't do that, right, and you have this set, right, entity class, it'll say, hey, I don't know how to map this text to this object. This is what maps that. The text to the object. Okay, so this. I think that's it. Okay. Now, let's look at. I need to check my mods directory. Yep. Remove that. I was doing some testing and various things in vintage drawers, so whatever mod I'm working at the time, I obviously can't have that zip in the in the mods directory. The other thing I need to do is increase the version. Come in here. Increase this version. I'm trying to be very consistent and very careful. Okay, and then I want to look at that block. I think the last thing we did was the chem plant. 60. So this will be 61. The block highlights and stuff, this is not finished. Obviously, I don't have the recipe to build it yet. But I just wanted to make sure that we increase the highlight ID. And let's do one last pass here. So we have 500,000 power storage. Power per second is 5,000. All of these I think are set right. So yeah, that should be good to go. We don't have a animation yet, so I don't need to put that in here. Once I have the gears and stuff inside, then I can do a bunch of animations and stuff, make it look cool. Okay, so let's see how I did. Could be any number of, errors or whatever. Chemical plant, close that. Metal gears, close that. Okay. Cross your fingers. Yeah, it takes a while to load everybody. I'm just sitting here going, all right. There's a lot of stuff. And I don't even have that many mods installed. I can't imagine the people who have like 60, 70 mods installed. Like, cannot imagine how long the game takes to run. Organizing all of that information behind the scenes. Oh yeah, I was taking screenshots for the Vintage Drawers mod. This screenshot was for showing the range, right? 16 block range from this. That's how far that is. 16 block range. So that's where that goes. Okay. We want a which direction am I why am I not seeing where's my mini map? F6. There we go. I am facing south. So Temporal Forge. There's the charged temporal steel. You can see, oh, that's charged. Machine plate, right? Temporal steel. There it is. Destabilizing steel in machine temporal forge. That's where that comes from. And then steel, you can look at this, destabilizes into temporal steel. I wish this also had using, destabilizes into this with the temporal forge. Like it's, for some reason, it's destabilizing into, same with extrudes into. It's like, there needs to be a machine there. I don't know. I didn't do that code, so I've been very reluctant. Okay, so temporal forge. We want give block Vent Engineering VEMB temporal forge built south. Because I'm facing south and I want it built. So I've got the built version in my hand. It's just a block variant. Right? So well, that's not cool. Okay, what did I do wrong? Block types, shape, multi-block, machine, temporal forge. Okay. Why would this thing put in the actual directory? Why would it put in the actual directory? It's never done that before. Let's do this. Control F. Replace with Vent Engineering : Do I need textures in there? I don't think I need textures in there. So let's do textures / replace all. Okay. Yeah, why it would suddenly start putting the thing into there? I don't know. I honest to God don't know. Yay! And it looks like that issue with the glass was definitely in the editor. Oh, yeah, I didn't. I left the reference block in there. Oops. Oh, yeah, I left the reference block in there. We might want to hide that. But anyway, this thing, right, it's incomplete. So if we break it... Oh, I'm in creative mode. So we have that. Game mode 1. Remember, this is the recipe of it. The recipe of it is the recipe of it is we copied the whatchamacallit. No, what was this? What was this block? This block was... Oh, what block was... What block was this? Was that item IO? Or was it... Maybe it was one of these? Nope, wasn't that. I can't remember my own recipes to my own things, by the way. It is what it is. No, it wasn't that one either. I thought it had a metallic sound. Is it a fluid block? No. Okay. I've standardized all the colors for this. Creosote oven. Light blue green was multi-block IO items. Items. Hey, there it is. Now we have actual things and stuff that we can interface with. It's not the right shape, of course, because it's the way the dummy blocks work. Because these don't have blocks right now. So anyway, but it works. Right. See, machine power low. Now, if I try to input a thing or something into this, there's item IO there, so I could insert an item on that side. I just want to see what happens if I throw in a steel ingot into this. Somewhere in here, I must have some pipe. There's some pipe. And I need a chest. Right. Remember, there's not a block right here, so we kind of have to do that. Although I should do it this way. And do that. Now, give item ingot steel. Boom. Input. Steel ingot. Power low. We don't have the fine matching recipe yet, right? We don't have that in there. So the current recipe is null. But you can see the steel ingot is in there. Now, if you smack this thing with a wrench, you get it back, right? It will empty. It will empty its thing. So you can see it's sleeping. Power is 0. Power per second is 0. Of course, you don't have any of the necessary gubbins on this, so don't think that that's done yet. But But you can see it's in the game now. And the inventory works. And I need to use the bathroom like nobody's business. So I will be right back. Okay. So as far as the recipe, I mean, it would be nice to be able to use one of those giant temporal gears from the Resonant archives, but there are no extras of those, right? And they're not craftable. So I don't really have a way, like I would love to have that as the center point for this thing, but you have to use that in the Resonant archives. And once you place it, there is no getting it back. Not that I know of. So once you've placed it in the Resonant archives in the place that it needs to go, I think you need to repair, something for it. Once you've done that, you're kind of out of luck. There are no more of those. They don't put extras in the Resonant archives. I wish they did. That would be really nice if they put a few of those in there, because then I would use it to craft this thing, right, to build it. And the temporal gears themselves are not blocks, so I could create an intermediate thing, like a really specialized intermediate using temporal, like a temporal core. Like I already have the core. This is a multi-block core, but a building block to go in the very dead center of this multi-block, right? So you have the base, which is going to be, basically concrete. So you have reinforced concrete on the base with 2 IO blocks. You're gonna have a little donut of glass going around, 1 block thick, and then the middle of that glass, in the very dead center of that donut, I could have a special crafted block, right? A temporal widget. I don't know what you would call it. A temporal displacement concentrator. A sci-fi word, right? Just like make up a sci-fi word for it that is crafted with a bunch of temporal gears, right? Because I want this thing gated behind temporal gears. So I haven't quite worked out that. And then on top of that would be basically steel sheet metal with the center of the power IO block. So a fairly simple multi-block to build, using reinforced concrete, some steel, and glass, and whatever that temporal block is. But it has to be a block. Okay, it has to be a block. So it is what it is. It's just how the multi-block system works. It requires blocks. It's just how it works. I can't just inject like an item, like a ground storable item in there. It's just not. That would require hours and hours and hours and hours of custom code, and I just don't want to do that. Okay, so we have ingredients. Very, very simple recipe. Very, very simple recipe. And I didn't immediately see any errors or anything when it was loading the recipes. I didn't see anything like that, although I wasn't super paying attention. So the find matching recipe call let's go down here. Here we are. Here's my trash can. Anybody used the trash can yet? Anybody crafted this thing? Anybody accidentally shift click their pickaxe into it and have it just erase? It obliterates anything you put into it instantly. There are no takebacks. There are no safety nets. Okay, so the extruder, again, we have probably something in here. Let's look at find matching recipe. I just want to grab this. It's a lot of these are the same kind of things. So we have this. Now we need to okay. Is crafting. What do I need for that? I don't think I need that. So the matches here is looking for if I just did this, yeah, there we go. It's just saying, hey, take this item and send it as an array, right? It's the inputs. Set state on. Well, I'm not gonna do that yet. Okay. The state is going to be dictated by whether or not A, current recipe is not null, and B, whether there's a temporal storm. So I can't just turn it on when there's a recipe because there might not be a temporal storm. So current recipe is null. Recipe power applied is 0. Set state sleeping is fine because this is called, right? This runs when there's nothing in there. Return false. Again, why are there no trim trailing spaces? I need trim trailing spaces in Visual Studio. Why does that not exist? Right? Why can I not trim trailing spaces? I've literally never seen an option to do that. Right? Why? Why is that such a why is there not a trim trailing spaces in here? Right? There's format, there's a whole bunch of like super heavy things that you can do. Right? There's a ton of stuff that you can do, but you cannot trim trailing spaces. There's a whole refactor thing, right? You can run like a refactor thing, but even that, I've not been able to find it. It's just super frustrating. Okay. So we have find matching recipe. And yeah, there is a thing there. So the so the other thing I was thinking about doing is storming nearest rift less than 0, machine state on, machine state out. Okay, so main carry. So we want to do float severity equals is storming temporal system dot storm data storm strength float colon 0. Now we want severity plus equals rift system dot, well, nearest, we have a nearest rift. So it's 9999 float if there's no rift. So if it's less than 11, which means like 0 to 10, severity plus equals nearest rift greater than or less than 11 question mark nearest rift or 0. Okay. So severity is cumulative. So if you have a nearby rift, if a rift is within 10 blocks and it's storming, it's going to compound the speed. Okay? It's going to be a benefit. So if I want to do this, if there's a rift within 10 blocks, we're going to add 1 to the severity. Maybe severity is not the right word here. Speed. Okay. So the storm strength, I wish there was some actual documentation here. That would be super duper helpful. Get storm strength. If we do an analyze on this, get used by block bed. Storm throwing. Oh, okay, I could have guessed that. Block torch. Storm strength. less than... No idea what that's supposed to do. Temporal stability. Clamp 0 to 1. Temporal storm condition. No idea. No idea what the range is. Just a now storm active. Storm glitch strength. Assigned by. This is the... There we go. Yeah, this is, I think, between 0 and 1. I honestly I think it's between 0 and 1. So, going back here, if this is between 0 and 1, the nearest rift is going to be either 1 or 0. Now, man, if I do nearest rift is a float, what I could do is the closer the rift, right? If nearest rift is less than 11, then we want to return nearest rift, yeah, divided by 10. Okay. So it's if a rift is within like it'll be 0 to 10 basically. I mean it shouldn't ever be 0. You can't really have it 0 because that would mean the rift is literally over the like in the same block space as the machine. I don't know if the rift is an actual block or if it's just kind of an ethereal thing. I would assume it's an actual block, but I'm not 100% on that. And so you have the rifts divided by 10, so that should be a value from 0 to 1. And then it'll just add that to the speed. So the speed will be between 0 and 2. Okay. Now, what we want to do is grab, let me close, let's see, let's do this, initialize on SimTape. Okay. If is build machine on and current recipe does not equal null. Okay. So now we need to do ulong tick power equals ulong electric dot max power per second times delta time. Okay. Times speed. No, I'm gonna do that. That'll be the tick power. Okay. Ulong Well, the crafting, the power applied to the craft will be scaled by the speed. So the tick power remains basically constant. When it is on, it's going to use 5,000 power per second. Okay? Roughly 500 power per tick. So 500 power per tick. But it could be crafting 2x speed, right? If there's a storm, which they're always like, there's either going to be a storm or there's going to be a nearest rift, right? There's going to be a rift within range. And how the closer that rift is to the block, right, the faster it's going to craft, up to speed 1. Right? So the rift, if you have both at once, right, then that's good. But in the absolute best case scenario, you're going to be crafting at 2x speed. Worst case scenario, if you have a very weak storm, right? If you have a weak storm and the glitch strength, the storm, quote unquote, storm strength is like 0.6, well, it's going to craft at 0.6 speed. Okay. Now I could add a little bit of a nudge to this where the speed, like I just add like 0.1 or something like that to the speed just to make sure that like we're basically above 0, because I don't want it to be above 0. So we could do speed plus equals 0.1 f, which adds a flat 10%. I could even make it 0.05, right? 5%, added. 0.05, 205.05. Right? I don't want speed to be 0. It should never be 0. But if a rift is 10 blocks away, I would take that 10 divided by 10. Well, that would be 1. This is not returning the value I thought. If it's 10 blocks away and this is dividing it by 10, I need 10. So if this is 1 block away, God, how do I do this? My brain just kind of looked at this and went, oh, this is... nearest rift. Okay, so if the rift is 10, would it be 10 minus nearest rift? Right, so let me just think about this. 10 minus nearest rift. Maybe 11. So if nearest rift is 1, right? Which means it's literally next door. It's 1 block away. 11 minus 1 is 10. Divided by 10 would be 1. If nearest rift is 10, that would be 11 minus 10, which 1 divided by 10 would be 0.1, which is what I want. Right? Yeah. So that fixes that. So tick power, if electric dot current power is less than tick power, return. Don't do anything. We don't have enough power. If recipe power applied is less than ulong current recipe dot power per craft, recipe power applied plus equals tick power times speed. Okay. So we're taking the tick power, which could be a floating point number between 0.05 and 2.05, because we're adding this flat, right, 0.05. I just want it to be a little bit, I could make this 0.01 if I wanted, just to make sure. But we're scaling the speed here. This is basically 5%. It's going to be 5% roughly faster than what this formula returns. So if recipe power applied is less than the power per craft, which means we are crafting, then recipe power applied plus equals the scale of tick power. Now, normally my machines are just plus tick power, but we're scaling it by the speed of the storm, which admittedly could be less than 1. Right? So if this is 0.8, we're going to have tick power times 0.8, which is going to be less than 5,000 power per second, right? So it could craft slower than what you think it is because the storm is so weak. So this encourages people to use the setting in their worlds to have crazy storms, right? Really heavy storms. The heavier the storm, the better, the faster this craft is going to be. Now, most people aren't going to need that many things unless we include a whole bunch of crafting recipes for steel, for temporal steel, and we add a bunch of other stuff. But, you know, once the machine is set, you can do whatever you want with the recipes. Okay. So recipe power applied. So tick power is that ulong scaled power equals ulong tick power times speed. Okay. The reason I needed that, scaled power, now we can take this and go scaled power. So we have electric power. This is the internal minus equals tick power. Recipe power applied scaled power. Well, we take tick power, right? These are like differently scaled. If recipe power applied is less than power per craft. Okay. Else. Crafting complete. Okay, so if current recipe dot try craft API input slot inventory of 0 or 1. Okay. that will try to craft the recipe. Electric dot current or electric power minus equals tick power. Recipe power applied equals 0. Find matching recipe. Right? Finish the recipe. The try craft will craft the thing, right? It will craft it. And if it does successfully, right? That's why it's in an if statement. If try craft is good, it returns true, it crafted it. Remove the power, reset the power applied, find the whatever the next recipe is. Else if client update delay is greater than or equal to 0.5f api.logger.error. I'm just going to copy this. The reason I have this client update delay in here is so it doesn't spam the log file. Okay, this client update delay, right? This is this gates the spam, the server spam updates. It only updates the client every half second. Somewhere up here. Yeah, there it is. I might have missed. Nope, there it is. I thought I put it up here. So yeah, there's two efficiencies that I've built into all of my machines. One is the sleeping mechanic. This is one of those things that I learned about and did first with Fortresscraft Evolved way back, like 10 years ago. Fortresscraft Evolved had this sleeping mechanic for all their machines. If a machine didn't have anything in it, if it wasn't actively crafting, it was classified as sleeping. And if it was sleeping, he didn't process the update tick, right? It was very, very fast. So this update bouncer is what tracks that. The actual machine is ticking the same number of times. If I swapped it, right, the ticking events, if I was constantly swapping those around, that would be overhead. That would be a massive amount of overhead to the engine. So rather than do that, I just capture that sleeping variable, and if the update bouncer hasn't triggered, it just bounces out, right? Update bouncer less than 2. So every 2 seconds, right, it's processing the whole tick, is looking at everything. If it's not sleeping, it doesn't run it at all, right? It just doesn't run it at all. But the moment it starts sleeping again, that update bouncer takes effect. So it's just kind of going on behind the scenes. And then on top of that, we have the client update delay. And this is the thing that delays the server sending packets to the client, update packets. Because the Mark Dirty events, you can easily saturate networks if you don't gate your update packets, because you can very, very quickly overwhelm the network traffic by doing that. So if you're running a mod, if you add mods to your game or your server, and you're looking at your network, your usage, right, your network saturation, if your server is if it is pegging your connection out, if your internet connection is just getting saturated, that means you have a mod installed that did not gate their update syncs, and it's pushing too much data to the clients, and it scales by how many clients, by the way, right? Those mark dirty events send those packets to all connected clients. So if you've got 10 people on your server, it's sending a copy of that update to 10 different people. And if you're doing that 10 times a second, well, that's a problem. So I scale that back, and I can adjust the client update delay. I could make that even less, but then people complain that the values in their UI jump around. It's already hard to see when you're watching batteries and the batteries are charging. You see the values kind of swing wildly, and that's because it's like you've got an issue with the updates, because you're not seeing the up to the tick updates. Now I could add a bunch of infrastructure to force that if you're in like debug mode, but I would literally have to go through literally every single one of my machines and do that. Add that like catch-all. If we're in debug mode, or if the debug is on, then just update it. Just completely saturate everything. Every single one of my machines would have that. And then if you have it enabled, like if I had a config option and it was like debug mode, and then I went through all of my machines and I was like, okay, if debug mode is on, then completely saturate, all of the data. That could even introduce more bugs because the system is too saturated. Because remember, you have the electrical network, right? The electric networks in the mod, they tick 4 times a second. So you have all of the machines ticking 10 times a second. You have the electric network itself that ticks 4 times a second. And then you have the pipes, all of the extraction nodes, right? If you look at your base, every one of those extraction nodes is also ticking. And I can't even remember what my tick rate was on the extraction nodes. There is no pipe network anymore. Don't look at that. I do want to remove those. The pipe fluid, pipe item. These are not used anymore. These are depreciated. So, but I want to see. I can't remember. I can't remember what my tick rate was. When you engage the extraction sides, the extraction nodes, I just want to look to see. Extraction nodes. Wrench. Insert nodes. Sneak. Okay, here we are. Extraction nodes, rebuild connections. Yeah, pipe extraction node, initialize. Okay, so pipe extraction node. this is what actually gets the somewhere in here. What is this? Setup dialog. Okay, I don't want to do that. Where in the world? I can't remember where I'm setting the tick watcher, right? The tick listener. One player right click. It would make sense if it was in here. Yeah, remove extraction tick listener. Initialize. This has to be it right here. Huh. I can't remember where that is. That's so weird. Do pipe tick. That's the config option. Yeah, see, remove extraction listener. I'm there. It is. Yeah. So I'm defaults to every second. And then the actual upgrade can change it to the whatever the delay is of the upgrade, right? Which is set in the upgrade item. So, yeah. So it defaults to once a second, but then if you have like a steel upgrade, it's like 10 times a second. Your delay is like 100, which is the milliseconds, right? So, you don't want to really go any lower than 100 because it's just too fast. Like, anyway, yeah. So I wanted to say it was like a second or every 4 seconds or every quarter of a second, something like that. Whatever. So now we have fine matching recipe. We have the crafting process itself. I think this is basically it. Let me just this is basically done. So the test. Now we don't have power in it. I think what's left of the time here, I don't think we're going to get any Project Zomboid stuff. Somebody said that the latest update might have broken the cooler backpack mod again. So I'm going to have to look into that. Every goddamn update of that game, they break the mods. Like, it's just insane. So let me add this. Boom. Crafting, vintage engineering, temporal steel. Why? Okay. Why is it vintage engineering temporal steel? Let's get crafting. Oh. Oops. There it is. Crafting temporal steel. Input steel ingot. Crafting paused. Requires active storm or nearby rift. Right? Power low. The code, the very top, the code, some of that stuff is I have, because I have debug info on. But yeah, this thing here, again, the base will be concrete blocks. Then you'll have a layer of glass. At the very center of that glass is going to be something, right? A block of something. Maybe two, because I could go 2 blocks, like 2 blocks of whatever that is. Some super expensive temporal gear sort of recipe. And on top of that, have a donut of steel sheet metal, and then the very center of that will be the power IO block, right? This I need to take that reference block out. Let me do that before I forget, because I would forget. It's almost guaranteed that I would forget. And I'm really, really hoping. Oh my God. You know what? Instead of doing it that way, because that scares me. We're going to remove this. Yeah, see this render in editor false? I thought when I turned that off, I thought it was turned off, but no. I need to actually delete it. I was worried that deleting it and then saving it, because all of the textures were broken, that it would redo all, like it would like clear this out and I would have to retexture the damn thing. So I would rather, clear the elements out of here. Just clear the reference out. I should have deleted it before I, reset everything, but that should have gotten rid of that. Okay. Okay. Now. Now, the only thing that's left is to actually test it during a temporal storm. I don't know if there's a debug command to trigger a temporal storm, but that'll have to wait. But other than that, it should be good to go. We have the recipe, the crafting recipe, which I can make. You've seen me do that several times now. I've done it on stream with several machines. Most of the multi-block machines I've done it. So just watch one of those previous streams. But I need to have something for the core, the building blocks. Something special for that. So that's what's left. Okay. Yeah, it's basically done now. There could be some weird, like, edge case something something. But yeah, build, rebuild. Yeah, it's good to go. But I think, yeah, that's going to be... That's going to be it, I think, for today. I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, which is kind of... it's kind of amazing. The machine is basically done. The shape is 80% done. And the block definition is 90% done. I just have to create the schematic to build it. So, yeah. This machine, as crazy as it is close to being, is very, very close. Now what's left, because as soon as I add this to the mod, people are going to be like, well, what do you do with it? There's nothing. Temporal steel doesn't have a use, right? Now we can craft it. What is it used for? That's going to be the number one question in the mod. So, of course, the next step is to create something that uses the temporal steel. And to those people who have lasted this long in this stream, first of all, thank you. Please hit that like button. And just refresh the stream just for funsies. But what we're going to do with the temporal steel is we're going to create a custom tank, a temporal steel tank, or a temporal tank, whatever you want to call it, and a temporal chest. Okay. You can guess what these are for. The tank and the chest is basically going to be derived from the Ender Storage mod. Because the Ender Storage mod, of all of the mods I've ever used in Minecraft, the Ender Storage mod is the most helpful, is the most useful. It is I'd never ever want to play modded Minecraft without that mod. That Ender Storage mod is the quintessential quality of life mod. Being able to have a tank here and here that share the same inventory is like, or a chest, it's the most useful thing ever. And that is what the temporal steel is primarily going to be used for, as well as crafting your own teleporters. So the mod is going to introduce powered teleporters that you're going to be able to use and set up a whole teleportation network, which is this is MB tier. This is why you drive to MB tier. You'd be able to build the temporal displacers, and there's going to be a custom version of those for vintage engineering that you're going to be able to link two together, and you'll have to power one side and the other side you won't. So you'll be able to link them. So yeah, temporal storage, right? Temporal storage and teleporters. That's the main reason this machine exists, is to craft the materials, the gears and the temporal steel and anything else we can think of, to work with that. We could even create like a temporal. We could even make like a bread, like put bread in, right? Rice bread or something, like any type of bread, and it would output like temporal bread that would heal, right? You eat the bread and it would heal all of your temporal instability or something like that, right? So it's one of the ideas that I had. That way you could be down really deep and mine, right? You could be mining down there, and your temporal stability go down, and you just eat the bread, and whoop, it fills it completely back up again, and you just keep mining, right? It's just a way to sort of negate that system. That's just an idea that I had. We can investigate that. I don't know how the player individually, the player temporal stuff works. I'm sure it's just a floating point number, but... And there's somebody yelling outside. So that's my cue, everybody. See you all. Have a great rest of the day. Go out and touch some grass, and I'll do the same. So I hope to see everybody back here on Saturday for some more Project Zomboid shenanigans.